Hi everyone, Michelle here from the Creative Cove. Thanks for joining me today. I've been having a lot of fun with trees lately, so I thought I would do some more watercolor. I'm going to use my little watercolor book that I made out of scraps and the one I play in. So experiment with different colors and things like that and different drawings. So this time I thought we would do some trees. I've done some tree drawings with you, and thought we'd play with some watercolor. I have a couple of little watercolor videos, and I'm just enjoying them so much I want to just keep going. So still working with pine trees. I thought we would do a couple more style of pine trees and maybe a pine cone and a close-up, which is so you practice now. I know pine trees are really popular at Christmas time, so you kind of get your practice in, and then you're ready to make a whack load of Christmas cards when you're in the mood to create Christmas cards. I'm using my Uni-bal Vision permanent ink, archival ink. I will try and remember to link the pen. I get mine at Staples or Business Depot or whatever it's called, but you can get them on Amazon, so I'll try and link the Amazon for you. So today I thought we would maybe do the good old-fashioned Western pine, or maybe a Douglas fir. Which one? I just want to do something kind of different. A Japanese pine maybe. I hadn't decided which kind of pine tree. Let's do the western pine. It is a fun tree, and I've already started to doodle. So I am just gonna create these little clusters, and if you saw my last video of how to draw pine trees, it will kind of break down this look, so you can kind of follow what I'm doing. So I'm going to do a big one here, and this time I'm going to draw first so that my paint can dry, because normally I paint and then I've got nothing to draw. No time to draw, because I have to wait for it to dry before I can draw. So this time I'm going to reverse it and draw first. So I'm putting in these kind of round, bubbly overall shapes. So in that video, it talks about capturing the form of the tree, and we're not going to draw all the little pine details. We're far away from the tree. These trees get massive out west, and I mean huge. They're beautiful trees. I just love the shape of them. They're not your traditional Christmas tree shape. They're more of a rectangle. And the older they are, the more kind of damaged they are at the bottom. You know, it concentrates its effort on new growth and reaching for the sun, competing with all these other trees. That the old growth down the bottom doesn't get the sun, and it bumps up against other little trees and kind of kills off the old branches. So it has some real character to it. And pine trees are really my favorite to draw. Fir trees and pine trees, mostly pine. I'm drawn to their overall shape. I find them really beautiful forms. So we're going to stay nice and loose. That's the way I watercolor. I try not to concentrate on detail as much as I do on an overall effect. It's that loose, sketchy effect is what I like. I find it more interesting than trying to mimic a picture. You know, if you have a photograph of something and you're trying to mimic that photograph exactly the same, I'm not a big fan, because I find just use the photograph. You know, I like people to kind of take something they've seen, an image they have, or a landscape, and make it their own, kind of create things. So you can do this tree in purple. You know, it doesn't have to be green, doesn't have to be accurate. Just have fun with it and make it artistic. So I'm just going to doodle in here. So then I'm going to put so you can see, very loose. I'm going to put in my trunk. It's going to have a nice, big, fat, hefty trunk, because these are big, heavy trees. And these branches, though they're not very long, are heavy because they have huge clusters of pine needles on them. I'm just going to put a little bit of shading in here, just to help along the paint. And then I think what I'll do is, where I've left the trunk exposed, is do a little bit behind and color it in just a little, just to indicate that there's branches out the back of this tree too. Creates a little bit more form when you do things like that. So remember, they are round so that you'd be able to go all the way around this tree. They're not flat. So we want to make sure that we show that form, that dimension. So I'm just gonna scribble in a little here. Don't want to give too much detail because I want the paint to play. So there's that one. And then I thought maybe we do a branch. So I have Eastern white pines here, and they have these really pretty kind of wispy, thin pine needles. I thought we could play with that as well in our watercolor, see what we come up with. I don't have a plan, just going off my head here. So bear with me. That's the beauty of these little watercolor sketchbooks, is it doesn't work out, no big deal. It's just experimental. It's a way to learn something new without worrying about ruining a very expensive piece of watercolor paper. Trying some new mediums maybe. Maybe you want to mix this with some gouache or with some acrylics or with some alcohol markers. You know, this is where you would play. So I'm just gonna, maybe we'll do a pine cone on this side. So pine cone's coming off here and it's growing away from us. So we only see a little bit of it. Just a quick sketch like that. Nothing too serious. And a couple of pine needles coming in off the edge here. So they grow out to the side and they grow towards you and away from you. So again, they are also three-dimensional. I'm gonna make this guy go right off the page, I think. Draw the branch going back, very scribbly because they're very textured. Something like that. Maybe do another one coming up here. A little branch coming off with some more pine needles. Just sketch away. All right. And then maybe here we'll do a pine cone. So let's do, I like to try to draw a thin line here just so I stay in the right direction. And I did do a video on how to draw pine cones. Hope you checked it out. Hope you gave them a try. And we're just going to draw this one real quick. And not a lot of detail. Just want to make it look like a pine cone. A mature pine cone where it's opened right up. Just do that little color change. So if you want a slower version of how to draw a pine cone, check out that other video. I'll try and remember to link that as well. But you know I'm notorious for getting these things. I also have in my Etsy shop some pine cone printables of the sketches we did, so you can always use those for a reference as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel, it does help me quite a bit. And I do love to doodle, so it is encouraging when people buy my work. I do encourage you to draw yourself, even if you find it a little discouraging or frustrating at first. It's like anything, you just gotta kind of practice, and you'll find some things you prefer to draw more than others. I'm the same. I I have a hard time drawing faces. I don't have a lot of confidence in that yet, but I'm slowly developing my skills. So there, a little pine cone. All right, let's get some color on. I used this palette in another video and I really loved it. So I am going to stick with the greens. Might try something a little different, but we're just going to stick with the greens for now. So I have a yellow green, an emerald green, a Van Dyke brown, and I've been using Payne's gray, and I ran out of this one. I need my other color palette here. I might use this one right now, actually. And the cobalt blue and some burnt sienna. So I might have to grab some paint out of this one if I need it. As you can see, I still have a lot of paint that I just mixed up from the last video. I remixed those colors. So I'm going to start with the emerald green. Sorry, the yellow green. This is a koi watercolor paint. I just recently bought it and I really like it so far. It's not an overly expensive watercolor paint, but it's got some nice pigment to it. And I've only bought those colors. I haven't bought any other colors in that brand yet. So I am just going to loosely throw these colors in, very loose. I'm just going to have some fun with my paint, and that is why I built this book. I just want to have fun with it. I don't want to think about it too much. I just want to drop the color in. Let's see what happens. So now I'm going to go to the emerald green, and I'm going to mix it in here with a little bit of, what is that called? Payne's gray. And some Van Dyke brown. It creates this really nice kind of army green. And that's very opaque, so there's not a lot of water in there. So I'm gonna add a little water to my brush. I'm gonna drop this color in. So I think in terms of lighting, the lighting from the top of the tree coming down. So the undergrowth of these trees, underneath all these pretty branches, would get the darker greens. And I start light because I'm unsure of how it's going to turn out. So I slowly build up my colors. And just dab them in. And I think I'll add a little bit of this color to my pine cone. Not too much. It might be a bit too much, so I'm going to take some paper towel and take a little bit of that off. For the pine cone, I want to go a little bit warmer. I'm going to spread this out a little bit. And then I think I'll go into some Payne's gray, Van Dyke brown, and some lime green. Add some water. We'll throw in this much darker color, a few spots, and just kind of touch in. Maybe throw some in the background. Pull it up. Let the kind of watercolor have fun. You don't know the full effect. I mean, even if you're an expert watercolor artist, you'll have a pretty good idea. But that's the nature of these paints, is you really don't know what to expect in a lot of ways. And I kind of love that about them. Very unpredictable. And it also depends on the kind of paper. So this is very cheap paper. This might even be the wrong side of the watercolor paper. I have no idea. So I've got some of this cobalt blue, and I'm just going to throw that in here and throw that in my background, just a touch, liven up the sky a little. Very loose. If it grabs the green and bleeds, even better. Now, if you didn't want that effect, you would let things dry. Just let things dry in between. But I love the bleeding effect because it's, again, unpredictable, and I find that kind of charming. And I'm not concerned. I'm not using a very expensive piece of watercolor paper. Just having fun with some cheap cutoffs that I've turned into a little book. I'm going to go back into this dark gray brown color. Add a little contrast to my background. Keeping it loose. Okay, now I get gravitated to warm colors, so I really love a burnt sienna in my paintings. I probably add it every time to every kind of watercolor I do. So some burnt sienna and some yellow ochre just kind of warm up my painting quite a bit. And I like to drop this color in. And all over. So kind of sprinkle it in some spaces. And I think I'd like to add this to my pine cone. So I'm just going to dot it in for now. And not tons of detail. Just play with it. Add it up into my sky. Oh, I think my husband's home, so you might hear him talk in a second. He doesn't know I'm filming. And some splatters. Darken up this pine cone a little bit. And add some into the branches. Still using that burnt sienna. And I think what I'll do now is I'll add some Payne's Gray. More burnt sienna. And some ultramarine. Kind of get myself a really nice dark brown, a little Van Dyke brown, which I forgot I bought. Throw that in there. So I got a nice rich dark brown now. And I'm going to touch in to some of the pine cone here. And it's wet, so it's going to bleed. If you want more specific detail on where the dark goes, then you would let that dry. But I just want to have a very loose look. So I'm going to drop some of that in here as well. Some on the branches. Just really kind of play with that overall dark color. Nothing overly dramatic. I might pull some of this out just so it bleeds into this spot of the background. I think I want to add a little bit more blue in there. I'm going to grab some more blue, sorry. I'm using up my student palettes, that's why I don't want to waste it. Throw some more of that in there. Such a beautiful blue. Oh, here he comes. I can hear him coming downstairs. And really pop some of that beautiful blue in there, because you can never have enough brown and blue together, and it's just so pretty. So I just keep adding these colors in and creating some richness. So trees aren't blue, but I'm going to add a little bit in there and make it, you know, my own. So just keep adding and adding, and of course these will dry and you'll get some really fun dried lines along the edges of the paint, which is really another really charming thing about watercolor. And you can go as rich or as light as you want. So I think I'm going to go back to this really pretty yellow green and really pop a few spots of yellowy green in here. Just build up those bright spots and let that bleed into the background as well. So even though we don't have very specific lines here, there's still the indication of these clusters of pine, which is really fun. I love that. I think I'm really going to like that one. And of course, my last step is the gold, because I love gold paint in my watercolors. So here's some gold. Put this paper down here for a sec. I'm just going to activate it. And I like to drop this into the backgrounds. I like to splatter it, and it just gives it a really beautiful shimmer. And it might be a little hard to see on camera, especially while it's wet. But you'll see it in the thumbnail. You would have seen it in the thumbnail of this video. Hopefully it shows up in the... Can I see how it bled right out to the side? Love that. Love it. A little bit more. And I just dab it. Sparkle it all over. Who doesn't love gold, right? Oops. All right, so I'm going to just dry a little bit here where it's running off to the edge so that we can pull the tape off and you can see how much fun we had. There's nothing more satisfying than the tape coming off. So these will dry lighter, but they'll still have this really beautiful color combination to it. All right, dare I pull the tape off, even though it's so wet. Okay, one. I'll go up this way, and I just reuse this washi tape over and over again until it no longer sticks. And even if they do kind of bleed, it doesn't really matter. Kind of adds to the charm as well. And pull that off. And again, this is cheapy watercolor paper. I think I'm even using the wrong side of the watercolor paper. Because I'm using both sides in this journal. And these really cute little thumbnails that I really love doing. And of course, I would normally wait till this dries before I would peel this off. But for video's sake, I'm just gonna reveal. And there we go. Some really cute sketches and your little watercolor journal. And again, you can, once these dry, you can go over with more detail and use your pen. But you can see the archival ink doesn't dilute in the water. Now, I meant to try it with some alcohol markers, but they're still in storage. I think that they will bleed with alcohol markers because the alcohol tends to dissolve inks. But with watercolor and acrylics, you're safe. So there we go. There's some, they're still wet, of course, but I wanted to show you how much fun it is. So we're doing, this is the other video of the other tree we did, and this one's dry now. So I just saw you some gold. Hopefully you can see the gold in there. It's just so pretty. So there we go. When this dries, then there'll be gold in this too. I just don't think you can see it yet, a little bit. Well, that's it, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and hit that like button, and we'll see you again. Take care. Bye.